Welcome back into CyHawk Talk here on a Sunday as we look back on Saturday's win for the Cyclones and disappointing loss for the Hawkeyes. Maybe you're tuning in on a Monday. Either way, thanks for joining us and taking a look back, taking a journey back with us to Saturday. Ben, we'll start with you since you had a little bit more of a exciting game to cover. Just what's your number one top takeaway from that game?
It was exciting. It was a good game, Ethan. Certainly, an exciting 38-35 comeback win for the Cyclones. The first halftime deficit, interestingly enough, since that CyHawk game. So the takeaway from Rocco Becht was walking off the field. He said he told some guys we needed a win like this. We needed to face some adversity in the second half, but I don't know if he would have signed up for this much adversity because for a long time it really looked like the Cyclones were stuck. I mean, just huge plays. There was an 80-yard touchdown run from UCF, another long touchdown run by the quarterback, two essentially pick sixes, right? One of them got dropped at the 1 yard line, as we see a lot of college football players do nowadays, it seems like, but UCF just ran the ball in one play later. So essentially a pick six. Iowa State dominated time of possession, but UCF had the huge big plays that really swung the game in the Knights' favor. But at the end of the game, the defense with just scraping whatever linebackers it can together, got to stopped UCF's number one rushing offense and gave the ball back to Rocco Becht with 1:48. And with Rocco and the senior receivers he has, I guess that's a situation you have to feel pretty good about if you're a Cyclone fan. So Rocco Becht got the job done with a QB sneak. He was a threat all game on the ground. And the Cyclones escape, move into a bye week, 7-0 for the first time since 1938.
You mentioned Rocco's ability with his legs, and we've been hearing all season about this three-headed backfield from you. Is it a four-headed backfield now, or do we have to add run in Rocco to Action Jackson, Abu Sama, and Carson Hansen?
Running Rocco. We all had that on our bingo card, right? Rocco Becht to lead the Cyclones in rushing yards, which he did. He had 97 rushing yards and a team high 20 rushing attempts, which is crazy. As you know, we've talked about Rocco just has a reputation as a pocket passer, but in recent weeks has really shown, to have some elusiveness. And in Saturday, he had to do it. UCF took away, Rocco said, a lot of his primary first reads and played a lot more man-to-man defense, which kind of dictated, hey, Rocco, go and make some things happen. I think he had, it was something like 10 first down conversions with his feet. So he was doing it at critical times when the Cyclones were backed up or when they needed a conversion. Rocco was doing it. And yeah, Cyclones leading rusher, Carson Hansen probably would have taken that title because he looked great for the first 2.5 quarters, had two more touchdowns, and was running the ball really effectively. But he got dinged up. He left the game and did not return about halfway through that third quarter. So Matt Campbell said he had kind of entered the game with a little injury and got dinged up and just couldn't physically do it anymore. So we'll see how this now four-headed backfield goes for the Cyclones. Not a lot to speak of from our man Action Jackson. I'd say he was probably the fourth most effective rusher Saturday, as Abu Sama had a pretty good game, one of his better games for the first time in a while.
And then looking at the AP poll, Iowa State takes a bit of a tumble. Apparently, the voters are holding the close win against them, kind of splitting hairs, nitpicking an undefeated resume there. What do you make of the poll movement today?
Ethan, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with it just objectively by itself, right? Cyclones probably should have taken care of this game a lot more handily than they did. Wasn't their best game, but some people say win your clunkers. So, okay, I don't have necessarily a big problem with them going from 9th last week to 10th this week. But when you also move BYU up 2 spots, which I thought BYU won an almost identical game that the Cyclones did on Friday night, playing the Oklahoma State Cowboys really close and scoring a go-ahead touchdown at the very end. I thought those two results were very similar. And BYU moved up to 11, moved up 2 spots, and Iowa State moved down 1 spot. Don't have a problem with Iowa State moving down, but I do have a problem with it when you put those two pieces together.
If I could speculate right now, I think that's just more Big 12 disrespect than anything. They're not sure which of these two teams, BYU and Iowa State's the best team in the Big 12, but they know there's not two top 10 Big 12 teams. So right now they're giving it to Iowa State because they've maybe looked more impressive so far, but it's kind of like hedging almost, where they're like, well, we'll put them right next to each other, but we're not going to move them too high because the last thing they want is multiple Big 12 teams making the college football playoff as home teams and disrupting the SEC, Big Ten, I don't know, alliance pact, gridlock, whatever you want to call it, at the top there. So I imagine that's a little bit more Big 12 disrespect than Iowa State disrespect directly.
Yeah, yeah. Only three Big 12 teams are ranked, with K-State joining the ranks much later. But I'm not sure if anybody is really that good this season. Maybe Oregon, but as we talked about, they got by, on the skin of their teeth. So with Texas losing, Alabama has a couple losses now. I mean, who is good? I don't know if it's the Big 12, but I don't know. This year's been crazy. Maybe not quite like '07, but we might be talking about 24 in a similar way.
Well, I'll tell you who isn't good. That's my alma mater, Nebraska, who I was clearly joking about last week was going to beat Ohio State. I did not mean that seriously because they stink. I don't know if you saw that score, but Nebraska stinks. So we'll go ahead and just move along there so that no one comes after me in the comments for that comment I made last week. Looking at my game, you said you didn't get to see a whole lot of it. There's nothing to really write home about. I wrote three things home about it, but it was a real clunker. You say you got to win your clunkers. That was a clunker for Iowa last night, and Kirk Ferentz, called a spade. He said, we didn't play nearly well enough in any of the three phases to win tonight, and they were still decently in it. They had a chance to get a 2 point conversion to make it a 3 point game in the fourth quarter. It never felt that close. Michigan State kind of dominated from the start. It's just a real disappointing game, and we'll get into it later in the show. But kind of the final nail in the coffin, if you catch my drift.
A lot of the wind, I think, came out of the sails from whatever that Iowa Hawkeye ship had left. And maybe, it's crazy. Not too long ago, we were talking about a 12-team playoff, and I was still in that, and Caleb Johnson in the running for the Heisman. A lot of those narratives are kind of dead.
Yeah, I would say you're probably onto something there. Looking at my headlines, I think I missed on every single one of them on Wednesday. Party like it's the end of the world. I called Iowa win. I don't think that was an unpopular take. I don't think that was a hot take. I think a lot of people were calling for Iowa to win. They were 5.5 point favorites. Basically, they go 3-and-out on their first drive, and Michigan State takes control from there, hitting 4 field goals in the first half to take a 12-0 lead. Talk about a Big Ten game. K2 continues climbing. He ended up over 100 yards, but only thanks to a 75-yard touchdown on a one-play drive in the fourth quarter. So the box score looks good, but the actual film doesn't. And then carry on. Talked about it on Wednesday, did a story about it that came out on Friday. What wins in the Big Ten is running the football. But Kirk Ferentz correctly pointed out when I asked him about it on Tuesday, you still have to be able to throw the ball, and you have to use the run to set up the pass, and the pass to, you can't just let them load the box and stop the run. And that's exactly what Iowa did on Saturday, weren't effective enough in the pass to make Michigan State respect the pass. So they were just keying on the run. Caleb Johnson told us after the game that he just didn't have any running room. They were sending safeties after him, and there was just really nothing for him to do to get more efficiency in the first half. And so by the time he got going in the fourth quarter, the game was pretty much already over.
Are you more concerned with the offense or the defense? Something that we haven't brought up yet, but I know they had kind of an injury early that kind of maybe changed some of that dynamic, but overall, not a strong performance on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I think the popular thing, the hot thing to be, the trendy thing to be is to be concerned about the defense, because that was probably, well, it was the worst showing we've seen all year. They allowed the most rushing yards that they have all year. They allowed a season high in total offense to Michigan State, which, looking at the Spartans, not the best offense Iowa's played, not the most talented offense they've played. They made it look like a very talented offense, but just looking at it objectively, Ohio State was the best offense that the Hawkeyes have seen, and they made the Spartans look better than the Buckeyes. And so I think it's certainly alarming, and it's fair to be alarmed. But I still think the most concerning thing is the offense, because you look at it, the defense got a turnover early in the game, even when they were missing Sebastian Castro, which isn't going to be a season-ending injury according to Kirk Ferentz. Cohen Entringer got a turnover, and they had a chance to kind of take control of that game, get some momentum going, and the offense went 3-and-out, and Drew Stevens pushed a 58-yard field goal attempt a little to the right. He had the leg for it, just missed it. You don't want a field goal out of that drive. I've been pounding the table for like 3 episodes now about how they're not getting anything out of their turnovers. And they did it again on Saturday when they had a chance to take control of that game. They failed to score right before half again. This one wasn't off of a turnover, but they had another chance to score before the half and failed again. So the offense is just it's killing momentum. That I think that's way more alarming than what the defense is doing. The defense got stops. Jay Higgins said, we were clearly doing something right because we were preventing them from getting into the end zone for the most part. It was just the offense is killing momentum and it's just not getting any better. There's not any signs of improvement. It looks like it's going backwards most of the time. And there's just an utter refusal to try anything different. Obviously, Caleb Johnson's working, but they refuse to give Brendan Sullivan a shot in anything meaningful. And he showed some juice against Ohio State. He had a 30-yard run, which was their longest play from scrimmage that day. And so it's like, just give the guy a shot here. I mean, it can't get worse than what it is. So I would say I'm still definitely more alarmed about the offense. I'm getting a little worked up about it, and I'm not even a Hawkeyes fan. So I think that proves my point right there that the offense is definitely still the most alarming thing.
So, Ethan, with your Hawkeye playoff-ometer presumably at 0, did you sense that there's going to be any more receptiveness to making some changes and seeing what some younger guys or some different looks can do?
We'll see what the playoff-ometer reads in a couple of seconds here, presumably, but I don't see any changes being made. There was a reluctance to move to it yesterday when the playoff hopes were on the line, I would say. And Kirk Ferentz told us after the game that there was no real discussion of going to Brendan. So I don't see a change being made in the near future. Maybe 2-3 games down the line that the calculus changes a little bit more. But right now, as things sit, I don't see a change being made. I think it's logical to conclude that you should maybe go with a change there, but that's not where I think this coaching staff is at all.
Well, we can get into the playoff-ometer, and we'll start with the playoff-ometer in Ames, which is probably going to be a little bit more friendly. And Ethan, I think I've moved into the emoji of a lock. And as long as the Cyclones keep winning, I have no choice but to keep them there. They're 7-0, sitting at the top of the Big 12 standings, along with BYU, who they don't play, which again helps in terms of the automatic bid for winning the Big 12 conference. I still think that's Iowa State's best way of getting into the college football playoff. One loss in a Big 12 we've talked about that's not getting much national respect in the rankings could put you out of the picture. So I do think that the Big 12 Arlington game is going to be the way the Hawkeyes get in. And right now, there's nothing I've seen that is going to make me move those chances back. So even with the Cyclones dropping a spot in the AP poll, I'm going to keep them at the lock.
Yeah, so the playoff-ometer wasn't designed to go this low. So actually, we're completely off the playoff-ometer for Iowa. And it's just the zombie emoji, just the dead, reanimated corpse, no shot. I put it in the takeaway. Sayonara, playoff hopes. You said you read that article, so I'm sure you already knew where I was going to be at with the playoff-ometer. Sorry, it's done. There's no marquee wins left on the schedule. They're 2 loss in conference, so I can't say that they're not going to make the conference championship game. 2 3-loss teams have made it in the past. Wisconsin got a little bit of help, and Purdue was propelled and elevated by a weak Big Ten West a couple of years ago. But it's over. I mean, it would have to be a miracle. It's less than 1%, less than 0.01% that they make the playoffs at this point.
we may have to start a bowlometer. I mean, the Cyclones are already eligible. What do you think
Yeah,
the
I might make
chances?
a tier. I might make a tier list of like potential bowl games slash opponents that we might swap the playoff-ometer out because at this point, Iowa doesn't need to do the playoff-ometer anymore. It's not going to move. Um,
Iowa and playoffs don't belong in the same sentence at this point.
correct. Correct. Maybe if we start talking about 2025 already.
We could do that. We could start a recruiting-ometer too.
I'll start, I'll just do a bracketology for the playoff-ometer every time. Start talking about Iowa men's basketball.
Yeah. Well, we'll quickly shift to basketball. Then they can get that back up.
All right. Thanks for watching this Sunday Rewind edition of CyHawk Talk. Tell us where you think these two teams are at on the playoff-ometer. Hopefully you agree with Iowa, and maybe you're a little bit more bullish on the Cyclones. But drop that in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe as well so you can be up to date on every episode of CyHawk Talk. Thanks for watching.